RenderWare Studio appealed to us because it offered a holistic approach to building a game production environment, if you like. So what it enabled us to do is it gave the programmers an environment to which they can add their code, but by doing that they can expose values to the level designers and to the artists, and this creates a very sort of collaborative way of working, because instantly when, for example, an artist wants to change the colour of a light in a level, you can do that dynamically and not only see it on a PC platform but actually see it on the target platform, so in our case we're working on the PlayStation 2.
It's just given me back time. Modern games have a finite schedule, and usually that's pretty fixed, because in a big company like this we have a very set deadline and we have to work to that. So it just means that within those tight deadlines that more time is given over to actually pushing the barriers a bit further and to going the next step, rather than just producing a game that's as good as something that's already been before, because something that's as good as something that's already been before isn't going to sell very well.
It's faster now, because when we did other games before, it was like we had to collaborate with a coder. I'd do some graphics, give it to them, they'd fiddle around with it for a bit, get it into the PlayStation 2 or the PlayStation whatever. Take time. Now I can just plug it straight into RenderWare Studio, stick it straight onto the platform, and it's instant, it's like that.
Because it's so much quicker, we get to make more changes and make things look better, rather than having, running out of time and say, well, we'll just have to leave it there. And as you can see, the level on here and the level on the PlayStation are the same. We can fly around, and by moving here, it moves there. If we go look over here, we have a list of all the objects on the level here. We grab a bin, put it in the level, it appears there. I can pick it up, I can rotate it. As I move it, the console moves as well.
It's nice for the artist just to be able to drag and drop things into the game world, rather than having to ask and hassle coders all the time and wasting their time. And say if I wanted this bin dented for any reason, go directly back into Max, get a nice dent, hang on. There you go, so it's knackered, it's been blown up. Can export this straight back into RenderWare Studio. Right, and here it is, straight away with the dented top. You're not working blind. You've got a PlayStation 2 in front of you, if that's the platform you're working on, and you can tweak a little slider and it changes, and it's great.
So instead of just writing an animation system that everybody else would write, a lot of that legwork's been done for me, so I can move on and do something a bit more special, do something that maybe other products haven't got, because a lot of my time has been freed up to concentrate on that.
What a programmer can do, for example, is expose values within the code that he can then show on the interface of RenderWare Studio that then an artist can tweak or a game designer can tweak.
And rather than following what the PC is looking at, I can move around with the pad. If I point at that, because that's object has a behaviour associated with it, which is a piece of code you can drop onto objects in RenderWare Studio. It gets a name. If I press a button, it'll open the lift. This button doesn't work yet. If I go over and find the button itself in RenderWare Studio, I can go in my behaviour list, and these behaviours all come out of the code. I mean, that particular one here has a few pieces of text in the code that tell RenderWare Studio that it's a behaviour, and if I pass the source by using the repass source button, they come up and they're available for dropping on things. If I drop the button on the button, and immediately you can see that it's now turned into something that can be selected. In this case, there's a name that appears just as a text name that appears when you select it. If I select that from the list, when I press the button, it will now open the doors. What I'm doing at the moment is writing the head-up display. I've been writing behaviours and putting objects down in RenderWare Studio. I right-click here and edit source. It'll take my RenderWare Studio and my Dev Studio to the point where the source is. There's colour pickers, there's sliders, vectors, and I don't actually have to write any code to create these. I can move the text, move that 100% around. I can make it bigger. And in the past this would have taken recompiling code, or we'd have to write tools to allow ourselves to do this, whereas all this stuff's really there and we don't need to compile anything, don't need to change anything just to create these things.
What we have now is a situation where designer, artist, quality assurance, all the members of the team can stand around one test station, and that's a great advantage. We can do this on a test station and actually move the HUD around using sliders on a PC, and we can see instantly. And a task that might have taken a day to get a HUD positioned might take us a matter of an hour. It really does cut down time by that much.
I can change the attributes of it just like that. So I can sort of set a nice mood for whatever I want to be working with, really. And it's nice just to be actually in there and doing it. There you go. And so if I wanted fog, I can add fog and stuff like that in here as well. Pump, and I've got fog straight away, which is just ideal.
But I'm able to test this on the fly, and I think that's the real advantage. I can see the changes as they're being made, I can see the effect that's having on the gameplay, and I can test it actually on the target platform.
In the past, we've proved that we can do the technology. We've written a technically competent game. We've done all that hard work again, and to do it all over again, it just seems pointless. There's nothing to prove, and it just means that your game's going to be the same as the last one. It's not going to be cutting edge. It's not going to be something new.
That there's an enormous financial commitment required for a company to start developing a game such as one we're working on at the moment. I mean, there's a valuable license attached, and then you've got a large team that's going to be working on that project for a number of years perhaps. Now, if they can't see any evidence of the game really being written for 12 months, that's a long time that they're waiting on trust, basically. You know, they've got nothing they can visually see that proves either the technology, that you can write the engine. Within, I think, 4 or 5 weeks of having RenderWare, we already had levels up and running that we could look at and certainly see that graphically this was turning out very well. And then further down the road, the advantages that RenderWare Studio itself gives us are we can actually prove the gameplay very quickly. We can start showing levels running, we can show split screen modes, we can have people playing the game. And that's got to be an advantage.
It gives me the chance to put clever things in, to do things that are, you know, more technically difficult than I would normally have time to do. So it also gives me time to do a bit more R&D. You know, I can look into things that perhaps would be considered a luxury on a previous product, but now I've actually got some more time to go into it, and it swaps from being a luxury into an asset, into a necessity, into something that will actually make our product stand out. It's just given me back time.
You're not working blind.
I can see the changes as they're being made.
A lot of that legwork's been done for me, so I can move on and do something a bit more special.
I can see the effect that's having on the gameplay.
More time is given over to actually pushing the barriers a bit further.
And I can test it actually on the target platform.
It's nice just to be actually in there and doing it.
We can actually prove the gameplay very quickly. We can start showing levels running. We can show split screen modes. We can have people playing the game. And that's got to be an advantage.
It's instant, it's like that.